It was supposed to be a simple find, an ordinary assignment for Claire, a historian fascinated by occult artifacts. She had spent years researching the legends of witches and their mysterious creations. So when a faded document led her to a remote village and to an antique shop filled with peculiar trinkets, she thought she'd hit the jackpot. In a dim corner of the shop sat a dollhouse. Its Gothic architecture was exquisite. Tiny spires, intricate carvings, and windows that seemed to glint with a life of their own. The shopkeeper, an old man with sunken eyes, offered it at a suspiciously low price. "This dollhouse," he whispered, "belonged to a witch. They say she built it to trap her enemies, binding their souls to the dolls inside." Claire smirked. She didn't believe in curses. To her, the dollhouse was a rare piece of history, nothing more. She purchased it, ignoring the shopkeeper's warnings about keeping it away from mirrors after dark. When she brought the dollhouse home, Claire couldn't stop marveling at its craftsmanship. Each tiny room was perfectly detailed. Ornate furniture, miniature paintings, and delicate chandeliers. It was almost too perfect. That night, Claire set it on her study desk, intending to document it the next day. As the clock struck midnight, she was jolted awake by a soft clinking sound, like glass tapping against wood. She froze, straining to listen. The sound grew louder, coming from the direction of the dollhouse. Gathering her courage, Claire approached the miniature house. She peered through one of its tiny windows and gasped. The dolls had moved. Earlier, they had been sitting stiffly in their chairs, lifeless. Now, they were gathered in the dining room, their heads turned toward her, their painted eyes gleaming with a sinister light. Before she could process what she was seeing, a faint voice echoed from the dollhouse. "Help us," it whispered, soft and sorrowful. Claire stumbled back, her breath quickening. She tried to rationalize it. A draft, her overactive imagination, but the voice came again, louder this time. "Help us!" The lights flickered. When they steadied, the dollhouse had changed. The once pristine rooms were now filled with shadows and decay. The dolls no longer resembled lifeless figurines. Their faces were contorted with anguish, their tiny hands pressed against the windows as if trying to escape. Claire grabbed her phone to record the phenomenon, but her screen remained black. Suddenly, the antique mirror in the corner of her study began to ripple like water. She turned to see her own reflection staring back at her, but it wasn't her. The reflection smiled, a cruel, knowing grin, and began to speak in a voice not her own. "You shouldn't have taken what wasn't yours," it hissed. "The witch's curse binds all who touch her creation." Claire tried to run, but the door wouldn't budge. The room grew colder, and the air felt heavy. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement, tiny, deliberate steps. The dolls had emerged from the dollhouse, their once delicate features now twisted into grotesque visages. They advanced on Claire, their porcelain hands outstretched. She screamed as the room was consumed by darkness. When she awoke, everything seemed normal. The dollhouse sat untouched on her desk, its tiny rooms immaculate once more. Claire thought it might have been a nightmare, until she caught her reflection in the mirror. It wasn't hers. The image stared back, smirking, as the voice whispered from behind her, "You're part of the story now." And in the dollhouse, a new figure had appeared. A doll with Claire's face, sitting stiffly in a miniature study, staring out the window. Forever trapped,